There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, step right up, step right in. I am your host, Quokram Nog, the glamorous, handsome, successful, opulent, clever, well-endowed Typhon, and I bid you welcome to Quarks. We have a great show for you tonight. Belly dancing Neek women watch in amazement as they load crossbows using only their. Oh, I'm being told there's also a play of some sort here that will be performed. Oh, yes, the day to who died. Ah, wonderful. Our performance will. What? Clarence, no, it's not a good time. I'm doing a bit right now. Clarence, can't it wait? Oh, no, I don't know what a Ferengi is. What does it matter? By the way, have you finished patching up the fourth wall yet? Ah, good. Make sure you put a fresh coat of paint on it. And now, without further ado, I give you The Day to Who Died, Episode 9, brought to you by Quarks. You know what character I really like, Clarence? That ghost guy. He's so cool.
And hello and welcome everyone, and thank you for that wonderful intro, Quarks. Um, it has been almost a month since the last session, which is still boggling in mind. Life situations have been changing for all of us, but in the good, I would like to think from the long run. So, without much further ado, back to where we left off.
The first 5 minutes of today's episode are free of charge. After that, I'll give you my PayPal address.
Oh, I think I'm gonna go broke here. But anyway, so we start once again. The world, if we all remember, has slanted somewhat. And we had left on the note of King Deliria, seemingly made whole once again by the inspirations and the words of Mulhall, walking towards the Harvest Master, and the shocked expressions of not only the Harvest Master, but most of those that had gathered in this place for comfort and the safety of such things. And Deliria begins to make his way up to the front. And for the first time since his appearance, since before this travesty, he's walking tall, walking proud, almost. And there's a light in his eyes, shining bright. For those who are there, because I know a particular event had happened out in the farmland for one Rakondu Castiel, but for those who see him now, who see him take this stand up in front of everyone, doing his best to seem at least somewhat straight, despite the fact that the world itself is at a perpetual lean. He looks out across the masses, their eyes gazing at him, and mutters things going through, words being caught in many different languages. Is a mixture of wonder and confusion, and maybe to a few ears, maybe a little bit of dissent. But those voices in their mixture go quiet when Deliria raises his arms out towards the crowd. My children, my friends, brothers and sisters, I come before you not whole. In fact, I have not been whole for quite a while. Many of you may have noticed that I have not been in public for the last chain or so. It is with a heavy heart, but one that I must express here, that while I am your king, I am just as mortal. I too have suffered loss. And there's a murmur going on as though people are not entirely sure what this is supposed to mean. And there's some people going like looking at him with further confusion. Some people are starting to raise their voices a bit, but he raises his hands again. But that is not right. I am your king. I'm supposed to worry more about the suffering of my own people, not my own. And for that I have lapsed. But I have returned. I stand before you now whole, my eyes with vision, my mind with purpose. I, King Deliria, take my stand once again as your king, standing before you now, to lead our community to tomorrow, to a brighter tomorrow, a tomorrow that I have seen. One where our sufferings will no longer haunt us. One where the present of this momentary nightmare that we are living in right now will wash away. This tomorrow I've seen, it may not bring those that we've lost back, but we will find joy once again. We will find our course once again. We will find the will to live on. That is what I have seen. And I see now in the recent events of this tragedy that still ripples across our world even now, that we have lost more pain, more suffering. We cannot wait for this tomorrow. We have to make it for ourselves. The Harvest Master has brought this community together, and for that I thank him. I thank him for his words, him spreading the warnings. I thank him for keeping this community's bonds strong together. But now I wish to take the helm. I wish to lead us all to the brighter tomorrow. Now will you join me? Brothers, sisters, children, friends, will you join me and help me see this vision of wonder, this vision of a brighter tomorrow for you all? And there's a long silence for a moment. And there are a few people who do actually start to stand up and state that they will pledge their loyalty, they will pledge their services, and that they will, and there you can see an excitement sort of wave that is feeding into one or the other of joy and wonder. And But not all. Not all are reacting in the overwhelming positivity of this. There's still a few who are kind of looking around at the excitement of their fellows and kind of gazing with sort of some confusion. There's one group in total that have not sort of expressed any sign except scowling. All their dirty beards and their squat noses and sloped brows and beady eyes. The Ferrum all gaze darkly up at him. And they all stick close together and mutter amongst themselves. And yes, but as the speech is going on and the crowd's reactions are going on, David Anzelon, you've been far more focused on something else. Was that cry from your daughter, but right before the speech had started, right before the speech took precedence over almost everything else, you had looked across the crowd and you saw your daughter, and it's from what she was saying, she saw you. And the unfortunate of the moment, right before the speech started, as your wife's head was starting to turn around, a small group of ogres towering over got in the way, blocking your position from view. What do you do?
The look of hope and excitement I had just, kind of falls away to despair as I frown. Those ogres block her view. I really hoped that she would have been able to see me. But as that moment passes on, I start to think, my eyes shifting quickly side to side as I wonder how she was able to see me. And I gaze at the crowd, and they don't seem to be taking notice. And I look to Mua Hall, curious if he heard her call out as well. Did you hear it?
Mohal, if you look up, you actually have a moment to be somewhat taken aback at the moment. Not that you haven't been able to see him relatively clearly up to this point, since you've always been able to see him, but now he seems a lot more solid. Isn't the right term I'm going to show. Like the edges around him have gained a little bit more clarity. He's still pale and silver in contrast, but he's standing here before you, less blurred, more defined. And the only reason people haven't noticed right now is that you two are relatively everyone's eyes are completely on the speech going on. It's the only reason no one's really seemed to have taken any notice, at least as far as you know.
Can I gauge from your face that I look different than normal, my friend?
So you speak out to me, your words somehow echoing across and able to reach my ears, or perhaps something more fundamental, despite the cheers and the din, the raucous noise of the speech and of the cheering, or of, if not cheering, the words and noises of the crowd. But they give you a strange look in response to your question, not risking to speak to no one here amidst the crowd, knowing what almost happened last time. But just give you a slight nod. ever so subtly.
That's all I need. As I look down at myself and got my palms in front of me, and it does look different. Perhaps more colorful in this spot. Things more clear than they were before. And it's a tough decision to, my desire to dash over to my daughter and give her a hug and tell her that it's going to be okay is clashing with this. I can't make a scene. I can't bring scrutiny upon them by revealing myself. And I start to panic a little bit as I dip out of sight, gazing at that pack of ogres with that longing expression before I duck behind something so I'm less visible. But I'm trying to make my way around the side of this crowd to get closer to my wife and daughter.
As you move from the spot, and this is something you will notice too, Muhal, as he moves away from you to duck behind cover, as you move from the spot, as you move maybe like 2 feet away, to your view, Muhal, he becomes a lot more fuzzy, a lot less defined, and the same for you, David Anzelon. As you do this much the same as you move, it's that feeling, that sensation, less whole, less connected to the realm, like the divide has holed up once again between the Ghostlands and the world itself.
Did I feel warmer when I was more visible, by the way?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
You felt just as cold.
So yes, as I'm moving along, I notice that difference on myself, and I stop a moment and raise a brow in confusion and look back to the spot and stare at it in puzzlement, wondering what's so significant about that place.
Could be. Well, that is something that is a question to explore. Though then again, as you and the fellow ghosts have been encountering, there have been certain areas within the town, and even certain areas outside the town, that you've been coming across, that the veil between the fleshlands and the ghostlands seem particularly thin. And it's those moments where, for a brief moment, a brief period of time, you guys seem to be at least somewhat visible to everyone around, which is something of an irritant when it comes to Senbei, who has been doing everything she could to make it so that your guys' appearance or knowledge of your guys' existence has remained unknown. In fact, that one area of the town that that incident happened, where those two spirits manifested suddenly in the town, that one covers at least a full block where ghosts can become visible and interact with the living. And aside from the fact that that place has been quarantined off by the Forest Watch due to the spiritual conflict that had happened there, people tend to avoid it. Except for the orcs. But that's another story. So maybe this little patch, this little spot right here, is just like that place. Maybe a little different. The real question is, how big is it? And where does it, and how big is this tear between the Fleshlands and the Ghostlands?
There are many questions on my mind at this time. Those concerns being among them, but I'm still making my way closer to daughter and child.
And you pass through people, because they are in the midst of the crowd, and it is a little hard to go through a crowd without physically having to move people, which unfortunately you have a bit of a handicap with. And each time you do, you pass somewhat through someone, you feel a shudder pass through you. or pass through them, and you get a shudder. Well, this one's a shudder of warmth and that taste and longing of life and vibrancy.
And I have to grit my ethereal teeth to not, to not stop and enjoy that feeling longer. I have to really concentrate on moving forward through these people, trying to avoid them. And it's, each brush on their flesh is like euphoric. It's such a wondrous feeling. Basically, the only thing I crave anymore, beyond seeing a few people that still mean something to me. Um, but it's that motivation of her voice calling out to me that keeps my will strong and helps me avoid draining my fellow man.
As you get closer, as the speech is somewhat continuing on, more along the lines of some of Deliria's plans or his goals in his mind towards what the future will hold, along with promises of talking to the leaders of the community and what the best course of action to bringing about this bright tomorrow is. You get there. You manage to get close. Your wife and child right there. And your daughter is like still perched. She's not even listening to Deliria right now. Your wife, however, still is and is just holding on to her on over her shoulder, but she's like trying to catch a peek behind the ogres that where you were, your child. But as you get close, you realize that she can't see you. Even when you stand right in front of her, she's still looking around.
That sigh as I lower my head, and I want to give her so much. I want to let her know that I'm here, that I'm here to take care of her and watch over her. And I look around me for some way that I can leave a sign, a message. Uh, is it? Are we standing in dirt right now, by chance?
You are.
Excellent. Good. All right. I crouch down and start drawing in the dirt with my finger. I'll just write, "Daddy's here." I'll leave it at the feet of the missus there,
Mm-hmm.
and then stand back up and I just stare at them. I keep a safe distance because I don't even want to catch a wisp of that warmth that might tempt me to do something that I would never forgive myself for. And so I just watch them because and my expression just it just relaxes. Like I look to be at peace despite that ever-present cold as I just stare at them and remember happier times. And I frown a bit as I see that they're a little worse for wear because of the situation that they're in now, but they're surviving, and there seems to be hope in their eyes, and that makes me smile. And I think that this might all work out.
Make me a perception check.
Let's see, one moment here.
Yeah.
That's going to be a 9.
Mm. I'll tell you catch a slight glint of silver moving that almost like catches it right at the edge of your vision. But before I get to what you see, when you turn towards the stage slightly, you adjust your view slightly towards wherever the rest of the crowd is looking. I'll tell you what you see in a moment. I'm going to shift to the other two who are there. Atlas and Mulhall. You're standing there watching the speech continue. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on this matter?
Um, as I arrived with the king, it is my wish to scan the crowd for those who are uh, amenable to the king's words and those who are not. I note the Ferrum grouping, which is no great concern to me. It is no different than they always have been. But I endeavor to show full support to the king and for his words and to sort of stand by him and stand close to him, always just slightly behind and be a comfort unto him and perhaps an additional source of inspiration for the people while this is all going on. I don't endeavor to leave the king's side until things are sort of concluded here.
Very good. Since you were looking over at the Ferrum, could you do me an insight roll?
Most assuredly can. Would emotions apply here?
Emotions would apply.
Lovely. That's interesting. I see both. There we go. There's a 6. 24.
24. As you have been glancing around the crowd, you're seeing people who are definitely very happy to see the king back. As a matter of fact, they seem to be the most outright adorations. It's the first sign of hope they've had in a while. Some people seem a little confused, a little torn. Just trying to pick up that they seem to have been more that for a while that they had been getting used to the new leadership that seemed to have been starting up from the Harvest Master, but are confused whether or not their loyalties to the king should take precedence over that or not. But as you look at the Ferrum and you watch them as they glance at each other with those beady eyes and they stroke their beards, and there's a grimness to their look and a solemnness, like they're waiting for something. And you see a few of them are reaching down to like they keep touching a part of like their belt line, where you see like small hammers or other things like would be normal, that would be like for craftsman tools and such like that. They keep giving each other looks and slight nods as they wait.
I'm also keeping an eye out for both Atlas and for Rakondu. I have intent to speak to both of them once this is over. But noticing that, do I see Rakondu anywhere around?
You do not see Rakondu. You do see Atlas, though, who I'm assuming is watching the speech.
Okay.
I am watching the. On that time to give a bit of Atlas's mind. He and even a bit about before. He was kind of. This is kind of like the closest he has been to maybe be on public eyesight, and he feels actually very scared about. He felt in a part comfort when he was not mentioned, when Bandor, the Harvest Master, talked about the event, and he feels some distrust towards the king, not only because he's a son of a bitch, rich daddy boy human that he despises in general, but because he knows he has been on the House of Contemplation. Has been feeling some distrust towards that place lately, and he will also be very attentive, more than like half to the speech, but more than to the speech, to the people in general. Maybe you want me also to make a roll on emotions, or and he's trying
Yeah,
to
you might
sink
want
in.
to
He
do
has never
that
been
inside
very,
mode.
yeah, he has never been very savvy of the political nuances of the town. But right now, on these moments where like world shattering things are happening, it's all of that which seemed so far away before is now so intimately close. And that will be an 8 plus 5, 13 plus 4, 17, 19 in emotions. Let
As
me
you're looking
confirm.
in the crowd, yeah, you actually you definitely notice the Ferrum seem very subdued and very quiet as they're watching this. They are definitely not celebrating with the return of the king. And but as to what it is, there's something grim about their attitude. You're not sure why, but they seem to be very set on something, as though, hard to say. Those iron minds of theirs and their stone-like face. You're good at reading them, but there's something going on underneath there. You're not sure what. And Millhall, as you're glancing around trying to find a forest watchman that you can quickly approach, the nearest one is unfortunately, you see Obi uh, Deliria. As you start to make your way, the world seems almost agonizing as you're making your way towards him to try and flag him down, to try and warn him of this. And you, David Anzelon, as you turn briefly, at first you don't even intend to notice the glance, but that flicker of silver happens again, and it's annoying. For a while at first you're not sure why, and then you're realizing it's too bright, it's too colorful, in as far as you are concerned, like a ghost, like yourself. And for a moment you can't exactly comprehend exactly what you're seeing, as you see the ghost of that Ferrum. I got his name. That Ferrum that you had with, the one that you actually, through your method of distraction, helped to get out. Rembram floats right behind King Deliria's head. He's got his hands outstretched and ready to grab.
The king? So my eyes widen.
And it's that thought, and his hands plunge down into his back. And Deliria gives a and we'll cut the scene to Rakandu. Rakandu, you've just made it out of that hole, obviously, with the ogre, who it's become very clear he's not going to be able to walk. And you're standing there with the other miners that you had been going with. You also are still shaking off that memory of that thing down there. You barely escaped that, only through probably the will, some luck or the will of your god, that you managed to get out of there alive. But you hear, as you're managing to gather them up, taking stock of your supplies and getting used to the way the world has somewhat tilted, you actually hear the sound of earth and stone being churned up. In a rapid moving, and the whoop, whoop of an optalang as it's carrying a rider. Another forest watchman, one you hadn't really gotten much the chance to really get to know, but another human, more heavy set than Obi, what seems to be more of physically inclined in certain aspects of himself. But he rides up, and there's a grim look on his face as he holds the optalang to a halt to you. And the optalang, despite the way the world has tilted and everything like that, thanks to its lizard-like being a lizard, it seems to be seems to have adapted to the tilt of the world a lot easier than most of the normal individuals, as it's sort of giving around and flicking its tongue out, tasting the air. Hail, Rakondu!
Hail.
I've just come from the. Yeah. He is a senior member, and as you're racking your brain for his name, it comes to you. It's what was the name? He was always the more silent type. As a matter of fact, this is probably the first time you've actually heard his voice, as he always seemed to have kept much more to his reserved self. But you did hear that he was one of the top talented scouts here. Marcus, that was his name. Never knew his family name, though. Only Marcus. Regardless, he makes his hail to you, and he sits down. Do you know where Hansa is?
I do not.
What seems to have been, and what's all this? He says as he's looking down at the at you all. You're actually getting the impression you're also getting the impression he looks very tired, like he's been riding for quite a while, and his optalang seems to be heaving a bit, as though they've been running for quite a distance.
My eyes slowly leave his as I turn for a moment, and I just make a gesture with my head to the others with me. There had been an event that happened while we were down in the stone. I see now that we are on the surface. It has changed things.
The entirety of I've been riding for the last 3 miles here when it happened. I was thrown from the optalang, but I had to get back on after the quake happened. Luckily, this steed of mine here, and he slaps its hide. They seems to be very well adept to the shift. But that's not why I'm riding out. I haven't been to flame dancing over a chain. And I've been scouting out ahead. And unfortunately, there's some grave news. I must speak with Hansa.
Well,
as soon as possible.
There is a gathering at the Harvest House. Many of the refugees are being kept there.
All right, very good. I shall ride. This is big news, Rakondu. You might want to get all your men and back to the town as soon as possible.
Understood.
And with that, he gives a crack of the reins, and a digging of his spurs into the upwing side as it gives another yelp. as it starts running towards the town.
But I stand upright, still facing him, as he leaves, almost like robotically, my head just sort of turns and watches him go for a few moments, and then like there's like this weird stillness as I just sort of watch that a man riding upon an optoling. For a moment, that rather large set human is changed to a man wearing metal armor, chain and plate, furs covering the optoling. There's ice, there's snow, and then that all goes, and I turn with quickness, and I turn on my heel to the others. Help, help me get this man up, to bring him down to flame dance at once. And like I say that, but then I go and I like go under one of the ogre's arm.
Mm-hmm. That older human immediately is at your side, and he's helping lift with you. And he catches your eye, and he gives a grim nod as he helps lift you with the ogre, which is rather difficult as as the ogre is essentially dead weight from the waist down, full of 400 pounds of pure raw muscle.
So I go over to like lift him up. I sort of lift him up so he's sitting up, but he's sort of sitting down. And I look. There's the other human, and I think there are some others with me, right?
Yeah.
How many others were there?
There's a
Real quick. I think there was like an
let's see.
ogre and a ferrum or two.
There was an ogre. There was an ogre, a ferrum. There was actually two ogres, a ferrum, and this is not including the one you're carrying right now. And at least 3 humans and 2 satyrs.
I sit up the ogre, and I look, but I pause, as I sort of lift him up, my hand sort of resting on his shoulder, and the back of his shoulder, and I just look around at the supplies that we have. I know we had some rope, we had some harnesses, and I'm trying to think of a way. I know we didn't have perhaps any beast of burden with us or nearby, but I'm looking for a way to perhaps almost make like basically what I did to bring him up. The harness that is maybe still attached to him, to make some sort of rope, so more than one person or more than 2 people could drag or move this person. I'm basically just trying to maximize how many people I have here.
Yeah, it's not that hard to find rope. You had to get rope in order to bring him up in the first place. So utilizing the same rope in the harness is actually fairly easy. But as you begin to make this effort, make this harness and stuff, you hear an outcry coming from the town.
I look up.
Yeah. And while you are too far away to see what's going on, but the fact that this sound of cries, shock and fear ringing out so strong catches your attention.
So I don't do a very dramatic like kind of thing. I just sort of turn and I scowl, my brows furrow a bit, my eyes squint, and then that sort of falls into a bit of a neutral gaze as I look at the others with me.
Yeah, and they've all
something
turned
like
their attention
suddenly
to this and look at you.
Something like suddenly bubbles up for me as I look at the corner of my eye at some others, and I look at a ferrum, and then I look at the other one, and then I look at the other human, the other ogre. Pay attention! Help me! Now! And then...
And they all nod, and they
try to,
they
snap
start
them
helping you. Yeah, it snaps a few of them out of, and they instantly start going towards you. A few of the others start start like grabbing a few supplies or things to grab. One or two completely lack discipline and just start running back towards the town. But that's those two humans, undisciplined as they are, except for the few that you have proven otherwise. But but for the most part, the rest of them are either helping you or grabbing some of the supplies and following your lead.
Mm-hmm. And I lead by example as I help drag this man across the worked soil of the farm lands here. And it's just like paying attention to any rocks. I mean, there'll probably be rocks here and there, but I'm purposely pulling him through worked soil over plants that may have been broken down or fallen or something. Just I am keeping in mind of his comfort. I'm not trying to tear him up, tear his back up, or anything like that. Or at least
I gotcha. So moving briskly but as carefully as possible. Got it.
Yeah.
And then
I'm actually not like sprinting,
yeah.
and I'm not exerting myself. It's a very methodic, sort of movement. I have my duty that I must uphold. That man has his other duty.
Indeed.
We're all cogs in a machine.
Duty machine.
That's
All
right.
hail. And as you guys make your way towards the town, the sounds are growing louder and louder. But I will turn the scene back to the rest as to what exactly is happening. For those of you who can't see Rembram, and even if you weren't looking directly at Deliria at the time, whether you were focusing on the Ferrum or you were focusing on trying to make your way towards one of the Forest Watchmen or not, you hear the gasp. that echoes. It cuts him off like right in mid-sentence of something that he was saying. And looking at Deliria there, you see all the color, all that vigor and stuff has been drained away, his skin growing pale, and he's shuddering in place. And for you, David Anzalon, as you're seeing him doing this, you see Rembrandt's hands in him, draining him, and you see the color, the solidarity coming into him, and Rembrandt's eyes are closed, and that wicked sort of smile over there has just given him into so much, just given in to the sensation that you know all too well, and is just digging into this and pulling it from Deliria, from King Deliria, and everyone else is in shock and horror for a moment. A gasp falls across, but then there's a yell, a rising yell into Julian, for those that understand it, of like, now! And then the Ferrum move in small groups of at least 20 in each, but there's quite a few of them despite the amount, and they start moving and pushing, and they start like tackling into kneecaps of some people, and hammers start being pulled out and being raised in a primal yell as the Ferrum begin to make their way to members of the crowd and attack them. I'm going to ask for initiatives now at this point, or reactions, I should say.
Oop, play some music.
Oh my God, Muhal.
It's 31.
31. Wow.
Gotta pay attention. Gotta pay attention.
That that is the quickest.
Oop. Oop, did you drop?
Yep. Yeah, it's
And I begin to question why I've hesitated this long,
yes.
where I didn't leap upon Rembrandt when he was going for the king. Why did I just stand and watch? I was too shocked. I couldn't do anything. And now it's too late, as this coup has begun, and the Farum seek to wrest control of the what remains of the settlement. And I'm just looking around. What do I do? I'm but one ethereal man.
And I believe it was implied that I can see this Farum ghost as well. I look in utter horror and shock, but as I was paying such keen attention to the air of the crowd, that instant after those suspicious, those foul Farum, those distrustful, greedy people, I see the ghost of one of their own wrapped its hands. My eyes immediately go to you, David, as I'm utterly shocked seeing this thing, and the power of opiate holds no bounds over the dead. But perhaps the dead can do justice to those who have passed. As in the instant, that is all I can think to do without the flame tender's guidance. Which is hopefully will be here soon.
But perhaps it's not too late for the king, as I've seen that look before. I've seen that colored rain, and I fly through the air, straight, making a beeline for that Farum, to wrest him away from the king, from the symbol of our order here, the symbol of Helena, in a way, the one that keeps this community together.
That's right. I just, at the instant, almost as if in unison, at your speedy dash through and above people floating above the ground with a speed known only to spirits and ghosts, and the disgusting cry of the bearded Farum, I let out an equally loud cry, echoing out amidst the calls and the din of the crowd, just protect the king! As my eyes lock upon those Farum would-be assassins, and perhaps do other things as well.
And as we continue to stall for time, perhaps
Exactly.
there is an apothecary there. And you say, protect the king, and he thinks, should I give him an aspirin? He appears to be having
Perhaps.
chest pains. I'm not certain.
We can solve this all in one round before the flame fighter returns.
Surely.
Oh my god.
He'll
All right,
never.
can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
All right,
Sorry,
good.
we took care of the delirious fun. We took
Don't
care
worry
of
about it.
Oh,
Don't worry
okay,
about
good.
It was really
I-
smart. It was, yeah.
It was a very good
never
fun.
shame.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was suitably epic as far as
Yes,
how you
yes.
dealt with this entire
Listen,
situation.
listen to me. Like Mohal had like a super quick speech, and
Yeah.
everyone was mesmerized, and they all said like, "Yeah, why should
Yeah,
why
don't
should
worry
we
about it, it's all
kill?"
fine. So
Well,
I can see this ghost, right? Or do I not see
you
it? Do I just get like a weird like something's wrong? I get a strange headache, or do I see this ghost or don't I see the ghost?
you do not see the ghost. You see
Okay,
Delirio seizing up and going pale and cold, and uh, oddly enough, not weak. His legs seem to be locked in whatever is happening. He seems to be going cold, and the Farum are all starting to surge outward from their positions in small groups and starting to like tackle some individuals and start bashing them with hammers and stuff. And there's screams. People would.
Okay, so I don't see the
People are
but so
starting to panic. So go
I don't
ahead
know
and
what's happening
go.
with the king. He just perhaps he's seen exactly and he may have gasped just at the yell of the Ferrum come to bring violence upon us all. So I just yell out, seeing the my eye was on those Ferrum
But
guys.
perhaps
King.
the determined look in my eye as I look like I'm, sprint flying towards the king would alert you that something is amiss here.
Most assuredly. But I do see apparently 20 Ferrum charging charging the crowd here. So
Well, more than that, more than 20. But
okay.
they're splitting off into like groups of about 20. There's like quite a few of them actually. Maybe
Okay.
a little over 150 if one had to give a number to the Ferrum present.
Yeah, I mean I'm going to say that's the confusion of it all. I'm going to say that's my action, just to shout out, perhaps alert the whole crowd that something's going on here. Perhaps I don't know. I just yell as loud as I can. Protect the king, and these Ferrum start knocking skulls. That's me.
Yep. Cool, cool. All right, what was the reactions of everyone else in the scene currently?
I was lunging at Rembrandt.
Okay, so you were next. Okay. Rembrandt is unfortunately not seeing at this point. Seems rather engrossed, understandably, in his current predicament here, as he's just draining away. And you can see the life force in Deliria, which stood out so bright compared to most of the others. Everyone else in this crowd, it's almost like his life force was almost like an eclipse compared to everyone else. Well, it seemed to eclipse everything else, but now you're watching as it's growing dimmer and dimmer, and it's just feeding right into Rembrandt. You're actually not sure if he can actually drain as much as he's draining at it, but he seems to be going at it, and he seems to be pulling as much as he can. But that specter of death that you see, that vision of it, starting to creep into his aura, starting to grow deeper and deeper. But yeah, he's completely unaware for you, so you can do whatever you want to do.
I would like to try and wrench him off of the king.
All right, go ahead and make a brawl.
All right, let's get brawling. Let's see.
Brawling.
Dab, 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 dab. 13.
13. Because weight is not really much of a factor in your ghostly forms and stuff like that. You can actually wrench him off fairly easily, despite you probably not being as technically ectoplasmically strong as him. if we had to do that. And besides, he's kind of enthralled, so that when you grab onto him, it's a shock. So go ahead and describe how you wrench him off.
Yeah, so I go up there, and I just grab 2 big fists of his silvery essence and pull, as hard as I can and yank his hands out of the king. And then I spin him around so we're face to face, like almost nose to nose, as I stare at him with this like ferocious intensity in my eyes. My teeth are clenched, and I've got him by like the scruff of the neck, I'm holding him up, Like I'm Batman, he's a thug. What are you doing?
And there's a blink in his eyes for a moment as as he seems to be like coming out from whatever like high he was in, as he's like trying to piece together of this. And the thing is, as you're holding him, you feel how warm he is, how strong that essence flowing through him is at this moment. And he looks at you for a moment, he's like trying to piece it together, and then his eyes narrow at you, and he sneers. There's, what do you think, Clayman? Revenge. But it's not his turn yet, because we go to Atlas.
Okay, so immediate danger. Rose, what's around Rose and what's around Grace? That I already kind of had insight since last session.
Well,
and how
they're
far
in
away
the-
are they from me?
Rose was actually nearby Mulhall, not directly next to or anything like that, along with the other priests of the and members of the House of Contemplation that had arrived nearer the edge of the crowd. So she is not in the direct path of the Ferrum, who seem to have entrenched themselves not exactly to the center, but somewhat within the crowd. So they're making their way out through there. As far as your mother, you haven't seen her since you got here.
Okay. Okay, then I'm
And
gonna.
especially now with the chaos going around, that might be a shot in the dark with how fast everyone's starting to book and scatter as best they can. Screams rising up and the crack of bone and skulls, knees, and anger.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm gonna go towards. Nevertheless, I'm gonna go towards where Mulholland was right next to the king. So Mulholland, Rose, and the king are all together, right? More or less.
No. The king's up. The king's in front of the crowd. All the House of Contemplation people are near the back of the crowd. So there's a whole crowd of people in between.
Then I am going to go. I'm gonna go towards. Wait, are there any other clerics around that I like? Them are clerics that I recognize around.
Aside from your own clergy members and a few of the members of the Harvest House, no one that you could say immediately right now. And it's just started. This is still a shock. People are confused and not sure what to do, and no one's really taken any real big action yet.
Any guards close to the king?
Aside from 1-2 force watchmen, that's about it.
Okay. Well, fuck it. I will go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go forward next, like forward, trying to get myself in between the line of action from the Ferrum to the king.
Okay, so if you could do me a favor and make a strength roll, because I think you're... Well, how are you wanting to make it through the crowd?
Well, one
Because
option may
really...
be... Give me a second. Hola madre, estoy un poquito ocupado. One option that could be kind of cool would be to use my acrobatics, actually.
Okay. I could see that. Go ahead. I could see that working fairly well depending how you do it. So go ahead and give me a roll.
Okay. Let's see. God damn it. Okay, well, it's not too terrible, I think. So, that's a 14. Total 14.
It's not going great, but it's not going well. You're starting to make your tear through the crowd and stuff like that, and you're trying to move with the beat of the crowd is the way I'm going to see it as that. But the problem with this beat of the crowd is that there's people who are still in some shock of silence, people who are screaming, some running, some quite angry, namely the ogres, who seem to be starting to shove back, and everyone start trying to go everywhere. at once.
Yeah.
And it's getting really nowhere. So
Okay.
while you're trying to swim your way through it, you're actually doing fairly okay, better than probably someone who probably normally would have been trying this. But it's
Okay,
still
so
going to take a
this
while
is
as you fight your way through the crowd.
okay. Noticed. This is more or less how I'm going to describe it. As I go towards the crowd, and there's like all these people crushing one against the other on all kind of directions. I see like some little pockets of like some spaces here and there that I try to launch towards, and I basically put like I launch myself forward, putting my palms like next to the clavicles of several people. Like when I watch those spaces, and I go like whoop, like I use them as a tumbling pace for a front flip, and then like I'm again in one of those pockets, and all these people moving, and I try to look like for the next kind of opening in the crowd, and that makes me go more or less, better than if I was like directly struggling with everyone forcefully, but at the same time I'm trying to look for these openings.
All right, cool. And so you've entrenched yourself in the crowd and are trying to make your way through the area. Fortunately, now it's time for me to determine the crowd. Well, Rembrandt's the only one I really need to roll for right now, so I need to roll Rembrandt because things aren't going well for the crowd. So, God damn it, dice stream. Okay, I guess I'm going to use a different dice roller since the internet wants to screw me over. Fine, I can roll with it. So, and David, as Rembrandt has said these words to you, and he's gripping on, and you've got a hold of him. He grabs onto you back, and at this point, we're going to make opposed brawl. Oh, no, maybe not opposed brawl. I'm trying to remember what. Yeah, it could be opposed brawl because he's going to grapple you, or you can do your defense, depending.
In my case, it's the same, so I'll just do brawl.
Okay.
As we have wizard battle of the wills, basically.
Yeah.
4 and 7 or 8 and 7. 15.
You rolled an 8, right?
Yes.
So roll that again and add the.
Oh no,
the new
it was
total.
2 4s. It was 2 4s.
Oh, okay. All right, and 7 is.
In my modifier.
Sorry, so you got your 15.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe it's the strength of his own essence now, being imbued with the power of a progenitor of humanity within him. But he's starting to overpower you as he grabs onto you and starts to. And he's using the motion of the fact that he also is not corporeal, much like yourself, and not bound by the laws of gravity, as he grabs onto you and he starts to spin and spin with you as your forms actually start to bleed, almost as wisps of yourselves are starting to coalesce and commingle and stuff like that, and you're gaining less definition as he's whirling you around, and he's also doing so much the same way, until finally he lets you go, sending you hurling upwards about maybe 10 feet before you reorient yourself and you have yourself floating there, and he's rocketing back up towards you, hands outstretched, ready to grab onto you again. Meanwhile, the crowd has finally, the reality of the situation has finally set into it. There's screams going along, panic, pain, cries, the crunching of bones, the horrible sound of tendons pulling, the sound of Farum laughing, the cries of ogres as they get angry and wrathful, as several ogres start bashing into people, and some of them don't even seem to be caring where the attacks are coming from, whether it's the Farum or people passing by. The moment someone umps into them, they like grab onto these people and then pick them up and then just slam them down into a few other people, sending more casualties are starting to happen, and more in terms of injuries, but casualties starting to happen as the Ferrum who have brought weapons to this are going. Forest watchmen and a few of the clergy members are trying to make their way through towards other individuals. A few others around the edge watch, eyes wide and in shock. The harvest master watches, and there is a burning in his eyes, a burning anger. And he turns and he runs back towards the harvest house. And just as he reaches the door, that's where we go back to the top of the initiative as the Ferrums are starting to make their way through. Mulhall, what do you do as the Ferrums are starting to spread and they're starting to take down more and more, and they're like rushing into each other or rushing into people?
Yeah. So hearing and seeing David now in this maelstrom of something I cannot see, my eyes widen as I have some understanding of what may be occurring in part. But I turn back to the oncoming crowd of wave of Ferrum, and I call out in a voice just as loud as before, taking out a small gourd wrapped with owl feathers, beads, and brightly colored markings, and I shake it in a particular rhythm, almost like a drum beat, and call out, "The blessing of the Dream Liege. Remember the stories. Remember the defense of this town as has been done in generations past." As I rattle that a few more times, and with the words and with the sounds, imbue several individuals around me with the blessing of opiate, with the memory, almost as if a daydream, a recollection of that one instance 77 cycles hence, when this town was besieged by foul bandits and roving Fushans who had traveled some distance from Nifland, who had laid waste to many fields and given death to many fathers and grandfathers. I include Atlas upon this. Atlas, you receive a +2 to attack and defense for the next round, and I do not know if this will work for the blessing of opiate to be cast upon the dead. Is that possible? I do not know, but these are strange times. But I attempt to will the dream into the spirit of David Anzelon as well. And several other forest watchmen or whoever else is around here who looks like they are armed and can fight.
David Anzelon, as you're there and you're looking down at Rembram, who's coming at you all silvered and imbued with power, you feel something. You feel potent. You feel something like almost distant, like it was from a dream a long time ago. And the cold leaves just a bit. Just a bit. And for a moment, it's floating up there in the sky for if anyone were to look up. And one does look up. "Mommy! Mommy! I told you I saw Daddy! I told you!" As she's looking up, and there you are, floating up in the sky, in full definition of color. As it seems, and other colors seem to ripple off you, colors that you don't, it's colors you know, red, blue, almost like an aura of blue cascading off you like smoke and even other colors you would never have a name for waking. But you know their names in dreams. So you do gain the +2 bonus to your attack and defense roll for your next turn. And you feel stronger, more real. And Atlas, you feel something come over you as well. Maybe not to the same dramatic effect as David Anzelon, but you feel something like old stories pushing you on to do what needs to be done. And the few others that you manage to enchant with this, you see at least an ogre who seems to come to his senses for a moment as that happens, and he closes his eyes for a moment and blinks, and you see that inspiration, that insight, that hope overcomes his rage just for a moment, for that moment of clarity. As he picks up two Ferrum who are starting to rush at his knees, as he picks them up and smashes them against each other and hurls both corpses into the other Ferrum crowds, knocking several of them over from the sheer force of his inspiration. You see a satyr, inspired, as a Ferrum is coming to charge at him. Inspiration strikes him in that moment as his head bends down and he brings his horns up, and the edge of it catches underneath the Ferrum's chin as he pulls and whips back, and it does cause a slight painful angle as him and the Ferrum go tumbling down onto the ground. And unfortunately, both are crushed underneath the weight of other members trying to cascade around and find their way around. But in that moment, inspiration drove him to take another one of the aggressors out. And finally, there's Rose. Rose is also inspired, and something in her eyes gleam for a moment. But it doesn't seem like much the same. When she closes her eyes, she pulls out of a little pouch a flower. Bright blue, shining. She breathes in. And her eyes are closed, and she grows quite still. And as for the moment, nothing seems to happen, at least on her end at the moment. But she is holding very still, and for a moment she seems far more real than anything else here right now. David, I believe you're next.
So I'm up there, shining, glimmering, splendid, and I see my daughter. You know, and she looks at me, she points at me, and as I've got this fist raised to counterattack Rembrandt, who's charging up at me, everything kind of slows down as I observe the chaos below, and I see my daughter's face, and I sort of calm down. That angry expression leaves me, as I remember I am a man of principle, and I raise a hand to Rembrandt in a stopping, like a stop motion, and I attempt to reason with him, and I say, Rembrandt, stop yourself. Look at this madness that you've helped create. After one calamity, you would visit another upon these poor people, upon your own. You must have had a hand in this attack. They wouldn't have been so bold without you, a weapon such as you. But it doesn't need to be this way. We can reunite once again. Help me calm them. Call off the Ferrum. Let's keep this community together and strong.
And your voice echoes, and it feels a lot more solid and more pure, and it rings out. You actually can, everyone in the crowd can hear your words, and you hear a gasp down below as your wife looks up. David? I told you, Mommy. I told you Daddy was there. I saw Daddy. I told you. And they're both looking up with you in wonder and shock and some confusion. Well, your wife in shock and some confusion and hope in her eyes at seeing you, and your child is so excited and pointing up at you despite the danger that's going on. Rembrandt seems taken aback from this strange transformation that has taken over you for a moment. It seems to be blinking somewhat stupidly at you for a moment. But then he snarls at your words. We'll never be friends, Clayman. We'll never be a community. You and your kind took everything from us, and now with Tuhul dead, it's time for the new Farum Kingdom. And if that's what I can bring, then it's what I'll be. Then it's what I will do. And he lunges back at you, but it's not his turn yet. Go, Atlas.
I actually have an accelerated action I'd like to try here.
Okay.
The better with me than against me.
Okay.
As I point out to him, you and your brethren let your fear control you this day. Try to resist. Remember the way things were before this tragedy. So let me do a intimidatus check here.
Do his.
I think I just need an 18. Let's see. 4 and 3 with 7 and 4 is, oh my god, that should be exactly enough if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check.
I want to read it too, so
yeah.
It's a
with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it says 18 on intimidate.
You're right, Remington. It's an 18. You need an 18 on the intimidate.
Yeah. It says that it gives a
Activate the
bonus
ability.
against mind control and fear. But I kind of want to use the spirit of what is fear in this instance to sort of calm the crowd and help them to realize that there is a better way.
Well, more trying to bolster your allies that are aware of your presence is the way I'm reading it correctly.
Well,
so
that could be that too.
I appreciate the idea. I'm still going to let you use it. It's not really going to dissuade him, but it will inspire some people to try and bring the situation to a more peaceful end, or without as much destruction. So I will give that. So your words echo across the crowd, and those that hear it, it's like we can do this. We don't have to do this. We can be a community and such. And while there are some people who don't necessarily understand you the way that with the words you were saying to him, depending on language barriers and such like that, but the spirit of the words starts to seep into them. And ogres that were enraged seem to almost snap out of it. Instead of like grabbing onto Farum and snapping their necks or anything, now they're starting to grab them and like trying to like put sleeper holds on some of them. Some of the Farum are still trying to fight extraordinarily hard, but can't seem to do much else. Especially when ogres start grabbing them, a few more tactically technically minded satyrs start also doing grappling with the Farums, but it's become a struggle between the murderous intent of the Farums and the attempt to subdue from the community itself. Rembrandt's eyes aren't moved. Much like the iron the Farum are forged from, it's going to take more than that to convince him otherwise. And he lunges back at you, but it's not his turn yet. So, Atlas.
Okay, so right now I have like a clear path, and there are firm coming to where the king is right now, and in more or less in the middle of this, closer, much closer to the part of the king, I like it comes to I see this floating image of David Anselon with kind of similar but much more fabulous aura than what I just got. Would that more or less be a correct description?
I'm
Yeah.
peacocking right now.
As you
Oh man.
should.
So you are there are so to describe the scene for you, you're still somewhat in the middle of the crowd. People haven't completely dispersed. There's still people like trying to get all over the place. It's only been like a few seconds really. Um, but you can see the king. There's still some people in the way, and the king is like on his hands and knees and seems to be quite winded. One or two of the force watchmen have one of the force watchmen had actually come over and is like trying to lift him up. But you can probably make it to them by the end of this turn if you try another acrobatics because there's still a crowd to get through.
Okay. Okay, then I'm gonna try that. Let's go. Okay, that's a 10. I think that's a 17.
Mm.
Let me confirm. 17, yes.
All right, perfect. So not only
Okay.
so you
So,
make it you can make it to the place where you can impose yourself between the Farum, or you can be right next to the king, depending on how you want to do this.
okay. And I see this flying image near the king, right? Of David Ansel,
Above,
or not?
like 10 feet above the
Okay.
crowd.
Okay. So I go and put myself in between the crowd and the king. I make some more now more unhinged without the great amount of people, just a few, some in between. I do more of this acrobatic. I go directly, and I boom, I fall, and I look at the firm, I look at the king, I look at this flying thing, and I feel this inspiration, this potency, and I feel this kind of almost nostalgic sensation while I feel the stories. Uh, some some actually stories of Saints of the Mar come to my head right now, but then I have like this kind of almost nostalgic sensation, and I wonder if I am like half remembering how does it feel to be in opiate, for I never remember any dream of mine, and I am almost sure that it feels something like what I'm feeling right now, some kind of sensation of being unhindered, especially well, basically unhindered by the material world. And I'm gonna try right now to. I am close enough to the firm coming. I assume to make an attack, right?
Yes, you have you have your meteor hammer on you, right? Or well, you
Yes,
are
yes, I do.
between.
But right now,
Yep.
yeah, but right now that would like taking it out. It would be a move action, which I kind of already used. So
Oh,
I'm
gotcha. All
gonna.
right.
So
There's
I'm
like
gonna actually.
there's like this is a small group of like 5 Farum coming at you, and they're close enough. You can do at least an attack on one of them.
Okay, so I'm actually after I look at both sides, I look at the flying thing for a moment. I'm perplexed, but then I just straight out decide for it. Look at Muahan for a second, like thinking if that's something you can manage. Maybe it's one of your illusions. And then I look at Rose, what she just did, and I look at the first pheromone line that I see, and there you go. Basically, I do a kind of a front flip, and I go my legs go and surround one of the attackers, and I make like a kind of spin, and I'm basically I'm gonna try. Should have rolled.
Yep.
Let's see how it goes. Um. The roll just was. Oh yeah, good. Okay. Hmm. Okay, that's total of 10, 18 plus 18 plus 9, that's a 27 slam attack, and I'm gonna try to do as seen in the uh, very quick illustration, to take one of those firm, and I just boom, I wrap it with my legs in a very dancey fashion. I spin my body and I launch it towards another and make it so in such a fluid fashion that surely I'll call attention, maybe spin some of these attackers towards me instead of the king.
Yeah.
For however it is, he's a face of order in this town, and it is something that is needed.
Well, these Ferrum are all extras, so you pull it off, and you can indeed slam him into at least one of the other ones. So that leaves 3 down, and you've definitely caught their attention with what you've done here. As they're kind of looking at this for a moment, and they look at you, and for a moment they seem to almost look like they
I
debate.
rolls to clay. Why don't you try me, you fuckers?
And we will smash Clay. And they lift their small hammers and stuff, and they make their way towards you. But now
Come
we
here
are
and stumble with your friends.
So, Atlas, I'm going to have you make 3 defense rolls for me, please.
First one is 19.
Okay.
Whoa, second one is 19. Wow, that is crazy. The third one is 19. 5 4 5 4 and 5 4. Okay,
That's
so
awesome.
19, 19, and 19.
Well, even with the pressing advantage, the Ferrum come at you.
And actually
and
more, given the advantage of Mual.
Yeah, so yeah, 21s. Wow. So you are in the zone here. So if you want to describe how all 3 of them, they all come around you. They're all surrounding you as they come swinging at you with their hammers, and one of them has like a makeshift has like a kitchen knife that he's managed to get, and he's slashing at you with it. So go ahead and describe how you avoid those blows.
Okay, so I'm a towering presence, and I just dispatch 2 of his fellows, and they come to me menacingly, and then basically they try to have at my knees, and I just lift one leg and lift the other, and then the one with the knife almost butchers his friend as I lift the other leg, and just let them almost have at each other. I backflip to avoid the next attack. I fall. I look at his face, and I go, why don't you try me?
Awesome.
Is that the best you can do?
David Anzelon, please make a defense roll as he's coming up to smack you down.
Coming up. 8 and 15.
Okay. Don't forget your +2 bonus from
17.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what saved you. Because go ahead and describe how you'd avoid him, because he's going up, and it's like he's going to try and plunge his hands right into you to try and maybe drink even your essence in, which you've seen is quite possible thanks to Modesia.
So I was very much ready for it. Even though I was being calm and speaking those inspiring words, I did have doubts that he would not see the reason and still come at me. And so, sort of like a matador and a bull, he comes at me, and I sort of swerve. I spin around to his side and whip around real quick, just like pivoting in the air. So I come up behind him, and my expression is just like disappointment, sadness. I feel so let down that my own ghost bro would try to smite me. After all we've been through, after I just helped him escape, and this was what he wanted to do. I just sigh and shake my head as I ball up my fists, and I think, am I going to have to destroy one of the few people that I can interact with?
Anyway, Yep. So he misses you, and it's that moment. And unfortunately, as you make that movement, the color starts to bleed out, and you start to fade away. And once again, that moment of inspiration is lost. And you feel very much like yourself, and the cold comes back, sharper than before. That's the rest of the crowd. Luckily, Mohal, no Ferrum seems to be. The Ferrum don't seem to be making their way towards you or Rose at this moment. They seem to be more entrenched in the mass and trying to bash at them along these lines. But with those brief moments of inspiration that you had caused, a small domino effect has begun to happen with people, and along with the words from the momentarily appeared David Anzelon, everyone seems to be now working together, seems to be binding together to try and subdue the Ferrum rather than outright like kill them, even though there are still cries and fear and the cracking of bone and skull. But for now, you guys are safe, and Rose still stands there as though entranced by something. But then she opens her eyes, and she holds out her hands, and she speaks in words that don't have sound and don't have meaning unless you were dreaming. And it's not really words, she says, but ideas and dreams, hopes and desires and emotions of all kinds that they pour out of her. And roots start to spring up around certain members of the Ferrum who seem to be like, for a moment, stunned at a moment, and start trying to hack away at these roots that are starting to spring up from the ground. But they're not. But they can't. But no, they can't. Their blades can't find purchase. In fact, one of them tries to stab, and he stabs through his own leg, and he screams in agony as he falls over, and the roots start to wrap around their bodies, and blue flowers start to sprout and bloom from these roots and thorny vines they get as they're rolling around. But you recognize it for what it is. Those aren't real roots. Though the Ferrum did just stab himself, that was fully real. But those are illusions. She's tapped into into the dream so quickly. And now, to the rest of the actions of the crowd, as the doors of the harvest house bang open, the harvest master goes in. The king is being lifted up and starting to be pulled away from the crowd. Certain clergy members are starting to extract other members, are reaching in and pulling members of the crowd, women and children. Oh, those far weaker than and the elderly, and they're trying to pull them out and get them away from the calamity that's happening. Some of the crowds are managing to break away, but it's still in contention. There's still chaos. So go.
Who's that?
Nicholas, go.
Did Rakondu go?
Mercandu's still not here.
Oh, okay, got it. How bad does the king look? Is he on the verge of or is he just winded?
He looks rather winded, rather pale
Okay.
at the moment, and he's kind of stumbling with the help, but it doesn't look like it's something he won't shake off.
He'll be fine. Is the king is the king like a fighter, or is he more like I'm a party or I'm a nobleman's noble kind of a guy? Is he a king to take up a sword?
Yes, to all that. That depends. The
Is he
sword is.
more of a fop, or is he more of an active ruler?
He's more of an active ruler,
All
is
right,
the way I would
great.
put it. Yeah.
So as I note the significance of these astral roots dazzling the eyes and beguiling the mind, I keep that song, that rhythm, that chant that's likewise spoken in sounds. They aren't words. There isn't translation, but the sound and the rhythm of it for all who can hear seem to denote meaning. There's a nostalgia, there's an aged quality to it, of a recollection of old things and remembered thoughts, of tales told and such things, though you can't place it. Like a smell you would get that would take you back cycles ago, though you can't place it. And I keep the blessing going. I call out to whoever is one of the forest watchmen who has uh, the king. I see he is winded but not wounded. Uh, I call out to him, above the din. What do you think, man? You think your king is so weak? Give him his blade, that he might stand with us. We will not falter here. As I know full well the courage and the tenacity of King Deliria's heart, and he is a stronger man than this, even if he may perhaps need consoling from time to time. But I will not have the will of the people broken such. I call for him to give the king your blade, man. Your this forest watchman or whoever it might be. But again,
Yeah. The forest watchman.
mechanical benefits.
Yeah. So you're giving it obviously back to Rem and to Atlas. Are you giving it to the forest watchman, or are you giving it to the king?
Oh, I'm giving it to the king. I'm giving it to Atlas, David, Rose, the king, and a couple other forest watchmen or people who look like they're in the fray. That ogre, I don't know if he's a forest watchman, but he's filled with the inspiration. He's doing his thing, protecting the people.
Oh, for sure. All right. So yes. So once again, David, the flow and inspiration once again surges through you. It's just this cascade effect, and the light in the king's eyes light up again. And the forest watchman hears you, and he sees it, and he looks for a moment at this. But here's what you say. And he goes to reach for his blade, but the king holds up his hand, and he pulls off the cloak, lets it cascade down. And he cracks his knuckles and rolls his head. And with a wild, whooping laugh, begins to almost like do almost a spinning, sort of like whirling dervish sort of tumble through the air towards a crowd of towards the Ferrum that Atlas is fighting. I'm gonna roll his. Oh shit. Okay, I just had to roll his reaction to see if he got there before Atlas took his turn, and yeah, he did. Ooh. And Atlas, you stand there. You're standing there in the middle of the crowd for a moment. Suddenly, you see this whirling dervish, this blur of motion, come at one of the Ferrums. As suddenly there is the crunching of bone and teeth start to go flying as the force of this kick hits, twists, and cracks the head of a Ferrum standing in front of you. And for the moment, the body almost stands there waving as though, like, or not sure if disoriented or losing all life, before it's used literally as suddenly as the kick has gone through. The body of the king whirls by and grabs the head of the Ferrum as it goes round. As he whirls with the Ferrum and using like all of his strength, twirls and twists the other Ferrum right into another one of his brethren. Boom! Crashing them down in a almost double body slam. Now there's only one who is very much staring at this in disbelief. And Deliria is on the ground, holding this Ferrum, having let go of the Ferrum, and there's just a laugh, and he's just laughing on the ground as he starts to roll, and he rolls in a somewhat unstable fashion, almost, whether like he's disoriented or maybe drunk. David, it's your go.
Okay, I'm going to awe Rembrandt. I got 20 on the diplomacy.
Ah.
And what I say to him is, "You gain nothing by fighting me here, Rembrandt. Look upon the scene below," as I gesture wide to the Ferrum, which seem to be being routed. "This battle is lost. The will of the people has resisted your coup. You should leave now, for you have betrayed not only the living but also the dead of Flame Dance. Don't think you won't be exiled from our little group.
And it does have an effect on him. He stops and at mid-flight for a moment as you still have all that color, all that form, all that potency in you. And he stares for a moment at you, and he starts looking down at the crowd, and he looks back at you. He looks back at the Ferrum as the subduing is happening, and he looks back towards the swing, and it's very clear he's trying to make a decision, but then he stops, and he's looking down, and then he looks at you, and a sneer, and that sneer of his turns into a smile. There's nothing I can do to you now, but I hate you and all Claymen. But there is still something I can do. And he plunges, and I'll get to his action next, but you follow the trail of his gaze. It's down to where your wife and your child are still in the middle of this crowd, miraculously untouched by almost anything else happening at the moment of this crowd watching you. But they don't see the danger that's gazing at them and is making his preparations to dive. But we'll get to that when his turn comes around. Atlas, there's still one Ferrum who's very stunned and startled, and you still have inspiration flowing through you.
I go towards that Ferrum. I have like a very straight, I just walk towards him, I look at him from my, very tall to that very small, and I say, I am sorry. And I'm gonna try to chop him, like knock him unconscious by chopping him on the neck.
All right.
Try a brawl.
Okay, go for it.
And that's gonna be more than 12, basically. 12, 17 plus, I think it's a +2 with the Mohawk thing. That would be a 19 and a bit more. 1921.
All right, you definitely hit him. Go ahead, and you basically do that. You go ahead and describe you not chopping him and knocking him out.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh fuck shit.
I can hear him, but I don't know if he can hear us.
Yes, we can hear you. All right, so he knocked him out.
Okay, he knocked him out. All's well. Yay!
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay, so I approach him, and I basically just very coldly, very stoically, just chop, and it chops on the neck, and he immediately like goes out, but I stop, like I stop his. For those that know the weight of a pharaoh, I make this little feat of strength as I chop him, and I grab his like by the neck and by the cloth, the leathery cloth that he has, and I don't leave his body to just fall violently on the floor, but I just help him slowly fall.
Very good. Crowd's still fighting, but thanks to the inspiration, the
Oh, and
crowd.
just after, sorry, that just after that, I like look to my shoulder, and like if I had just immediately like realized, although I had already, I go to my knees and you know, like facing the king that I think is still on the floor, and I just say, my king.
All right. Moving on. The battle is still going on, but for the most part, the tide has been indeed swayed towards the subduing of the Farum. More and more people are being inspired by the strength of dreams and hope, are able to grab onto them and start dragging them down. The Farum are being disarmed left and right, being subdued by the strength of ogres and satyrs and humans. This event was supposed to break these bonds, supposed to be the uprising of the Farum taking over. But by these few actions, in a moment that was supposed to be something of even more of a panic and destruction, this has ironically brought the community more together than ever before. But it's not completely over, as Rembram dives downward towards two figures, a mother and child, hands outstretched greedily. And what's worse is they have no idea he's coming. And in that moment, as he's just about to get to them, an ogre is shoved almost from right in front of them by the jostling of the crowd, and his hands go into the ogre, and he starts to drain, but a look of shock comes over him as he realizes it wasn't his target. We are back to the top. The fight is starting to wind down. There are still a few stragglers. But Mulhall, you feel a tinge of panic and fear. That connection you feel between you and David Anzelon pulls strong.
Okay. I look to you, David. I feel that inexorable pull. And I look to you. My eyes follow your gaze. I'm gonna give myself. I feel like an insight roll is appropriate to keep it fair.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a 24.
All right. Yeah, there's fear.
20
Something.
23,
Yeah.
sorry.
23. Well, still high enough. There's fear. There's panic, but not for himself, but for someone else. Of someone else. And the only things you can think of like what would be concerning him of fear for other people would probably be his wife and child.
Yeah, who I do know, knowing him more intimately than I know anyone else on this earth. So say I call out. Um, uh, uh, through the actually I can't see them. I can't see them. I'm 3 feet tall, but instead, I, I rush towards higher ground in the slanted place. I just um, cry out. I forget the names of them. Maria Angelon, you're in danger. Come, follow the sound of my voice. I just call to them, hoping they will get out of wherever they are. As my voice, despite my size, carries a great it carries far, and I hope to just draw them away from whatever.
Could you roll me a sing check
I
then
absolutely
to see
can do that.
see if your voice can carry a lot far enough and siren call them over to you.
It's a 19.
19. All right, excellent. It does catch her voice, and she seems to break out of that stupor in shock of seeing basically her dead husband floating up in the sky. It's something like like in a dream or reality wasn't exactly clicking in her head for a while there. While her child is all excited to see dad's not only alive, he's flying, which is amazing. No one can fly. He's like a bird. and then the voice catches, and she jostles for a moment and looks round and realizes exactly where she's at, and she grabs onto Evie and starts running and starts running towards the edge of the crowd and towards your voice and trying to make her way.
To me, your husband still keeps watch over you even now.
David Anzelon. They're making their way, and you see Rembrandt is still in shock for a moment, having grabbed the wrong target. And the action of what he just tried to do.
And I saw it, and it was the ultimate betrayal. There is no shred of concern I have left for what was once my fellow ghost person, as I let out this cry of rage and fear, as he would dare threaten my family. Ah! And it just like goes out in this massive rippling cone and shatters all the windows in the vicinity, as everyone grabs their head from the piercing banshee cry, 21 saying, as I come charging down at Rembrandt, fist pulled back in a Superman punch as I lunge at him. It doesn't say what kind of action the scream is, but at your discretion, that'll be a 11 brawl.
I'll let the scream happen. It's a good potent moment. So, but yeah, he was in shock. In the fact that his plan for revenge failed. So you get him. You hit him.
And I plunge my icy arms into him and drain out that heat, and you can see the wispy essence being, drawn out of him. The color leaving him as it becomes more transparent, and I, look bolder, more defined as I absorb that pure life. And just screaming, just my mouth wider than should be humanly possible, my eyes pits of burning rage as I'm just yelling directly in his face, taking his life from him as he dares threaten that which I hold most dear.
And he now is in that shuddering motion, much like the king was in when he did this. And he tries to breathe, but of course you don't breathe. And there's shock and horror and fear in his eyes as you're absorbing him, and you're absorbing him, not just his heat, but you're taking in his very essence, his very being. As it's flowing into you, suddenly memories are flowing into you. And feelings of anger. He had a life from here, not here, not in Flame Dance. Bale. You remember your home in Bale. You were young. And you were supposed to work with a tutor in ironsmithing, to be taught those ways of the forge, of that which is sacred to Tahul. You remember your father, his squat nose, his pride, to see his son being chosen to be not only become a blacksmith, the most noble profession, but potentially, if his gifts were right, to be chosen as one to serve Tahul. You could feel his pride. Your mother. The memories change. You remember a human, golden skinned in color, screaming, drenched in blood, crying out to the night sky as a temple burns behind him, Lasandaria's temple. And you hear him crying out and cursing and spiting all the gods. And in his hand is your mother's head. You'll never forgive humanity, those clay men, for what they did to you, to your family, and how they took away your home. You'll never forgive Tahul, or how they abandoned you, how he abandoned your people to this fate. You moved. You had no choice. Your home was gone. It was to live in that filth of what was once your home, or to move far away from here. So you took a caravan. You traveled all this way. And here, there was no need for iron work. But your hands were good for tilling the earth. So all this promise, all this hope, this pride that your father had in you would go to waste. So you tilled those fields, stewing, and a human comes, Deliria, and his brood and his ilk, and suddenly humans are now in charge of Flame Dance. What is it about humanity? What is it about humanity that makes them better than those that were of iron? Humanity, Tahul. These things took everything. Everything from me. Everything from my people. And anytime I look at a human, I see that the blood of my mother covering every inch of him, and the blood of my people. And I just see what they really are. And you see yourself. You see yourself through the eyes of Rembram as you're trying to convince him. Of course, honeyed words. He's just trying to get me He's just trying to put me at risk to save his own skin. For his child and his wife. What about my mother and father? What about them? We gave up. We have died for them. We have lost to them. But no. If I just let him, if I just do what he asks, then Senbei will realize he had left too. Maybe that'll be enough distraction. Maybe I can. I'll do it. I'll do it for now. Little does he realize he's letting go of the key to the ultimate destruction. Humans have lived here far too long. Tuhul is dead. Tuhul's dead. And now humanity will die. Mother, Father, I do this for you. And that and many more memories pour into you. And before you know it, Rembrandt is gone. But his memories are in you.
As he was absorbed and dissolved, I sank down to the ground with him, clutching him until that last little puff of him was gone. And the scream died down as those memories soaked in from that rage. Ah! To despair at the very end there, as the expression on my face softened and I had my teeth gritted, and just sadness as I stared at that last bit of his face before it was gone. And I'm there on my knees clutching at the air, and I just start to shiver from the gaining of these memories, these experiences, the knowledge. And I start to sob, my hunched form, my back kind of spasming as each cry comes out as I try to get out that emotion, but of course no tears come. The scream stops. The crowd stops holding their heads. Shattered glass all over the ground. Leaves blown. Everything's clear. It's been dusted.
And there's nothing but a long silence across the crowd as many have grabbed their heads from the sound of the cries, from that cry, that inhuman, unholy wailing that's finally gone. David's nowhere in sight to anyone that can't perceive, to anyone who can't perceive ghosts. But Mual, from your position, you can kind of see where he is, crouched down low. You can hear the sobs. Mohal, I should say. The Harvest Master comes out, and he's holding the scythe up, and seems to, and has come like momentarily too late, as everyone else is starting to let go of their hands and everything like that. And he's looking around for a moment, trying to catch a glimpse of what may have been the cause of this whole thing, and then he stops. His gaze stares, and you see it, Mohal. You see him staring down right into the crowd.
And as I see that as the Pharaoh are routed, or soon will be, I call out with that same loud quality to it. I recognize the danger that perhaps David is in. I have no idea if whatever was endangering his family is put to rest or not, as I cannot perceive such. But I call out, "Come to the harvest house. The danger is over, my king." What would you have the people do? I call out for the king to talk.
And the Harvest Master, for a moment, as he sees the crowd, he sees this, and he looks at you again. And he looks at you, and his eyes sort of narrow for a moment. But he stands up as the king raises up and dusts himself off for a moment, rolls his arms, and he gazes around for a moment as he sees the crowd, and he sees you bowing down to him, Atlas. Rise up, my son.
I rise. My eyes are on the earth, as I do.
Those who are injured, to the harvest house. Those who have your prisoners or in stronger condition, along with those members of the forest watchmen here, encircle the Ferrum that are here. Keep them here. We'll get to the bottom of this. For the rest of you, go to your homes. Tomorrow, we begin the rebuilding of this community. And we will rise up in a moment where it would have been best to have heard the rest of the speech. The yelp of an Optalang cuts through. And up comes a human, riding it, bringing up to bear, and he holds it up, and he dismounts and kneels. King Deliria, I bring terrible news. And Marcus, for a moment, suddenly stops, and he sort of turns, as though taking in the scene for the moment, as he sees all these people in pain and fear and the dead. And he's staring at this in shock for a moment.
We have had
Marcus.
enough of terrible news and of grim days. Today we are together. Today we are one. Tomorrow we rebuild, as the king has said. For flame dance, for the king.
For flame dance, for the king! Comes another. For flame dance, for the king! And it starts the crowd, and suddenly there's a chanting going around. Marcus is looking around at this for a moment, and he brings in close, and he starts to whisper to Deliria and Atlas. Since you're close to them, you hear a bit of what's said. My king, we must talk. Flame dance is not safe. We need to get... and the king holds up his hands. We'll speak privately, Marcus. Where's Hansa? Where's the other? Where's Rakondu, the other force watchman? Rakondu is coming in from the fields. I don't know where Hansa is. Yes. Very well. Come with me. And so people are being carried. Those that are injured and not quite dead, or some that are dead, are being pulled to the back of the harvest house. Others who are injured are being pulled inside to be tended to and treated. They are allowing a few members of other clergymen to come in and tend to the wounded. Right now they are short on hands. Rakondu, it's not too long, maybe about 10 minutes after all this, as you make your way with your own crowd, see the death, the blood, the broken bones, broken bodies, and people with looks of shock. And yet, at the same time, a sense of camaraderie building amongst all of them for the first time in what seems like a long time. Of the people you recognize immediately, aside from Obi Deliria and Zanzik the Satyr, the other Force Watchman, and you do see Muhal, and you do see Atlas.
house was he the king? Right?
The king's not in view at the moment. He seems to have gone somewhere at the.
I mean, I scan and I just look for other watchmen.
Mhm.
And I look for Hansa Kyun, but I look and I see most of the bodies. Oh well, I guess no. There's all sorts of people that are moaning in pain and whatnot, right?
Yep, all kinds.
All right, so it's a grim sort of re-entry,
Mhm.
but I keep my sort of stoic visage. I don't sort of show any sort of reaction to this, other than perhaps determination, as I'm sort of heaving a bit, pulling, with several other pulling this ogre in here. Um, I let go of my rope, my end of the rope, and I just sort of scan for a moment. I let it go with one hand, and I'm still holding it with one hand. I just scan and I look for other night watchmen, or forest watchmen, I should say.
Obi's the closest one to you, and he sees you, and he makes his way towards you through the crowd. Rakandu, where were you?
It's on patrol.
Oh, I understand you couldn't make it. I understand if you couldn't make it timely. But things got bad. There was a coup.
Hmm.
The Farum, they just tried to assassinate the king. I don't know how.
Hmm. I can see that there are some casualties, some still injured here.
Hmm.
I have
So
another
most
injured. Where should I take him?
into the harvest house. They're taking all the injured in there right now, except for the Farum,
Understood.
and they can get healed last. He says, and he kind of gives a dark glare towards the circle that has been formed around most of the Farum prisoners.
I just look at him and I slowly sort of look at where he's looking at, and I just look back at him, and that's my only sort of reaction to that. But Severa's just sort of settled and I grab the rope with my other hand again, and I look at the others with me,
Yeah, and they're
and I
kind of
don't say
looking around
anything. I mean, they heard me talking to the guy, so that's what I assume, right? So I just look at them, and I just start pulling.
And they help you for the most part, bringing the body into the harvest house. And as you get into the harvest house, you see the groaning and moaning of people
And for
in
a
agony
moment,
and pain. And you see the harvest master there, and he's standing with Marcus and King Deliria. And Deliria is looking between Marcus and the harvest master as they seem to be having a discussion. And then he looks up and he sees you, and for the first time since you had actually encountered him the first time you met him, you see strength and you see light in his eyes, like he's alive again. But even then, he seems a little pale and drawn, so something was sucked out of him. But he seems to be recovering, and right, Rakandu, he says, and he beckons to you.
letting go of the rope, and I'm making sure the other ogre man is getting situated. Like I don't order some woman, but I just gesture like a nearby, perhaps some other I guess working people just cleaning wounds and whatnot. I make sure someone is seeing this ogre as soon as I enter in. And most of it's not like me ordering, like, you see this it's just kind of, I just go to them and I just grab their arm
Yep.
and I gesture as if saying, without saying anything, to the ogre. And I hear the king call, but my clawed hand sort of pats the big, meaty red shoulder of the ogre as I look down at him, and I just give him just a resolute sort of look, But it's not like a look like you're gonna be okay kind of thing. It's just kind of like a very neutral, hardened look, sort of thing. And that's like for a few seconds. I just do that, and I make my way over to the king. Dirty, with sort of just debris of rock and just dust and perhaps a little coal here and there. Sweat as well. My hair just sort of a mess. It's pulled back in its little bun. But I approach him. I don't have my. I was out working. I was spelunking. I don't have my shield or like my armor's all, my quilted sort of jerkin's all dirty, and I don't have my blade with me. I just have some tools around my belt or over my shoulder, like rope around my shoulder, and I just have one extra hammer on my belt. But I approach him, and I don't say anything, but I just go down to one knee as I approach him. Like it goes to a bow, but it's almost like, even if he makes a gesture like that's not necessary, I still do it.
Yeah. It doesn't stop you from doing it. You make your bow.
When I kneel.
You look like you've been working hard, Rakandu.
There had been an event that seemed to have rippled on the surface.
The entirety of it. Rise, Rakandu.
I look up at him and I rise up, very very straight backed, formal, in my pose.
I'm sure you've met Marcus. He was telling me. Marcus gives a nod to you. The Harvest Master gives a glance between you, Marcus, and the king. King sort of gives a. You haven't seen Hansa either, have you?
Not since I left for my patrol earlier this day.
It's disconcerting. Well, I know he's saying. Well, I don't see any reason why not. The Forest Watchman's going to have to be informed anyway. Just would rather he heard it first. But Rakandu, Marcus has just informed me that there is a group isn't even the right word. I don't even know what to call them. A pack. A pack, that's what I'm going to call it. A pack of creatures. Have you ever heard of Chwimbi?
I have not, my lord.
They're an ancestral enemy of humanity. Disgusting, foul things. Their laughs will chill the bones. I've faced these things a few times, back when my tribe was still small. I hoped never to see them again in my lands, and now what it seems is that with the events of Tehul's death, they've uprooted and are roving around, devouring everything in their path. Almost like some certain legends I've heard from down in the south. But they're here, and they number over 500 at least.
I look to Marcus on the back of the king.
The thing is, Marcus isn't sure whether or not they're headed directly in our direction, or if they're really having any purposeful direction at all. He didn't wish to tail them for very long due to the fact that they have a very keen sense of smell, especially for humanity. Regardless, where they were going, they would probably be passing maybe a good 50 miles north of us and moving on, but we're not sure. If they change their mind, if they catch our scent, so to speak, they may come here.
I don't like respond to that. I just give a very just sort of except my jaw just sort of clenches a bit as I look at the king.
Marcus has advised that it's too great of a risk, that we should gather what we can and leave Flame Dance. Leave it where it is so that if they do come this way, they'll find nothing of any use for themselves. And I find that most unacceptable, says the Harvest Master. Leave this place. This is our home. This is our community. These are our lands. So the lands that Velex will protect. You wish to leave that protection? It's maybe 500 cowardly creatures coming this way. But Velex will protect this community. You saw what happened out there. Even though the Ferrum decided to outright rebel right then and there, you saw that the strength this community had to subdue even an internal threat. This community will come together and protect what is theirs, what's their own. My king, you can't leave this place. Marcus speaks up. But those were Ferrum. Ferrum, stupid and cowardly, yes, but they don't have the same bloodthirst. They don't wish to devour everything that's in their path, especially, and worse, the Ferrum were only just killing. You don't know what the Twimby will do if they get hold of you.
If I may speak, my lord.
Of course.
And I nod to him. And I look over to Marcus, almost like I look at him and it's like a brief look, like how dare you? You just spoken like just like out like that. Almost like how dare you? And I look back at the king. These Shimbui, as you have named them, my lord, though I do not know of them and of the events that have recently transpired here in the community, I have seen the aftermath, and I see that there are men and women of many peoples still standing, though there are also many injured. If you are willing, my people are known for their traditions, martial practice, and you have one in your service, my lord. If you wish it upon me, I may train those willing and able, those beyond the Forest Watch. If you wish a larger militia to hold these beasts back.
Kling closes his eyes. The Harvest Master looks at you, and it almost gives an almost kind of a surprise, but almost approving look towards you. Yes. Marcus, how long did you sit? You estimated how long before they might arrive? 5 days? A chain at the most, and that's if they're, well, let's face it, they're not exactly the most hard-pressed of type. I'm sure you're well aware, my king. Yes, I'm very much aware. How long do you think it might take them at their longest? A chain, maybe, if they're taking their sweet time. But my king, there was something else. There was a rider. I don't understand why a rider would be that significant. My king, please forgive me. It wasn't a Twimby upon the back of that beast. I don't know what it was, but it made my skin crawl. And the beast itself looked ill. Like maybe it was an Optalang, but the bones were like poking out through the scales, and rotten pus was coming from it. My king, he had a bow made of ivory, from what I could see. And he didn't hold a quiver, but he had black arrows, blackened bone arrows, sticking out of his back, like his own flesh was the quiver.
I look at Marcus and I just look at the king.
Mm. And the king's kind of like, there's a look on his face that's very like surprised, and while he does his best to hide it, it's not fear that's on his face, but definitely a grimness comes over it. Make a roll for a bow of ivory, you said. This is the harvest master. Did you get a good look? Do you know the design of that ivory bow? I need to know. Did it look like it was composed of 3 ivory pieces or just one large one? I must know. Marcus seems struck. I don't know. I wasn't close enough to it. I just know it was ivory. That's all. How long? The king says. How long before you think you can get these people trained to at least be able to defend effectively?
My lord, we will need leaders of this community to aid the Forest Watch in this recruitment. We will need smiths, we will need carpenters, we will need mechanics, we will need men, we will need women. I have scavenged some raw ingots of iron. I've brought it here with me, but it will not be enough to arm a suit or a company. We will need to take what tools we can, melt them down, forge them. We will need what wood, albeit from the wreckage of buildings. Take wood. We will need fletchers, make arrows, make bolts, to make spears out of this wood. And with this, I will need as many as I can. to not only train them, but to make sure everything goes precisely as ordered. If you wish, my lord, I will give word of this to Hunter Kuhn after your time with me.
Long silence for a moment. Very well. Make it so. We are not leaving Flame Dance.
Understood, my lord. I ask now for the town's greatest cartographer. And then I bow deeply, and I slowly rise up before turning, dismissing myself.
You will wish to speak with Ixios the 68, says the king as you make your way.
I don't turn my back to him immediately, like I bow and I take a few steps behind. And, as I'm rising up and he says that, it's almost like a very fluid sort of motion. Like I raise up, he says that, and I kind of turn. And that's when I turn and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that, I look for immediately other forest watchmen, who this person is, find this person, and then begin.
So, going back to the crowd, to the events outside with people. Atlas, you wanted to check up on Rose, if I recall.
Yep. Yes.
Yep.
Correct.
So while this aftermath has been going on for the last half hour or so, Rose herself seems very much in a very almost dreamy state. Her eyes like half closed. But for the most part, doesn't seem any worse the wear or anything like that. She seems, well, happy for the most part, somewhat detached from what seems to be going on in the world right now. It's very clear she's high.
Okay, so at first I was kind of like waiting for the effect to wear off, but as I noticed that that's not, and while I was waiting, I have this extremely concerned, like I have so many alarming thoughts in my mind. I have like at first when I saw that thing, I thought what like when I saw David Ansel, and I don't know him as such, of course. I thought, what is this thing I saw at Mohal? I saw like they were doing this weird ritualistic wavings, even Rose, and I thought maybe that's some kind of illusion they're making, and even people seem to be aligning themselves to its speech, and with the potency of Muahal's speech, maybe this is an illusion for Muahal. That's what I thought then, but then was this strange, crazy, supernatural yell, and I thought that's not the way of Muahal. Me being one who knows people, I immediately discarded. I'm thinking, what can it be one of those things that roams the city? Can it be one of those undead? And I remember the two people on the middle of they were like two people in a crowd, as if they had been seeing something. They were watching at the ghost. Maybe if it was an undead thing, the way the little daughter looked at him. It's the affection of family, maybe. Shaking it off. So much has happened in so short a time. Immediately short, and even in thinking on the chains and the cycle, even then so much has happened in such a short time. And as I noticed that Rose seems like ever higher, if not the same, I think of all those times I gave her apples, and I just ask her, do you have any more of that stuff?
She sort of blinks her eyes slowly and gives a smile, and she reaches in and she pulls out another one of those blue flowers and hands it to you, and she mimes just putting it up to your nose and breathing in.
I take the thing, I look at the earth, I go, oh, so this is like this is how it feels to dream, right? That's why you're so fond of it.
She sort of smiles and she gives a weird little like head shake of like the yes and no kind of way she does. But she seems to be smiling, and while she doesn't give a sound, you can definitely tell she's kind of giggling in her own way with you as you both just sit there, brother and sister, high as balls.
You know, it's so stressful. Lately I've been feeling suited, and is it crazy to say that the more suited I feel, the more desperate that I become underneath that calmness? It's kind of paradoxical, I guess. Worthy of a Raxel, I think it's the name. I don't remember. I look at her on that face of happiness. Then I look to a side. I go back a bit. And time, whether it has happened like half an hour since I just did that or 5 minutes, I say, you know, I've been so tense about you. It's very unfair. I've had like 3 expectations from you your entire life. Completely unfair. The first expectation of you I had was for you to be alive. Now let me congratulate you. You are. Yep, you're alive. You're definitely alive. You're doing well on the first one. Yep. You're doing well on the first one. The second one, I'm gonna kind of forgive you because you messed up this last chain, you know. I wanted you to be uninjured. No, you messed up. You really messed up, and I almost killed half a temple of the Marians with you messing up on that one. For you to be alive, for you to be uninjured. And the third expectation, maybe the most unfair of all, I wanted you to be out of danger. Imagine me, the last chains, you out of danger, like anyone on Flame Dance, out of danger. Maybe if we just cover you with a blanket. Oh, I will never have one of these flowers again, let me tell you that.
And she's just smiling and not like it, and it's clear maybe she's only picking up like half of what you're saying. Maybe even you are only picking up half what you're saying. This is some intense stuff she's just taken, and it's going through you too. But in this moment, you're bonding. She touches your
I put
arm
my
there, and she squeezes it reassuringly as you're talking, and just sort of smiles and nods.
Suddenly
And
after that I feel kind of like a sorrowness, as if it had just entered the room, or I don't know, maybe just a shifting of emotions because of the flowers. It's been very unfair. Extremely unfair because you obviously can be so much more than that, and I hadn't noticed. I promise you that no matter what, no matter how apart we may be right now, how different it may be to follow OP, to follow Demar, what secrets we may have for each of our deities that we may not be able to share with each other. I want you to know that I will always be your family and you will always be mine. Right? Uh, what was I saying?
She just hugs you and just holds you close and tight and just just seems to get very comfortable and just full of love and happiness right in this moment. And as you're having this moment, we'll turn to Mulahal, who at this moment is also giving his own comforts.
Yes, I've spent some of the as the crowd has dispersed, as those Faramir are still alive, being taken away as prisoner, giving comfort to the family of David Anselon, who I hope is okay and has, if he is, has left the place. As though bittersweet, there is danger here. But unfortunately, my time is limited. But I give Maria the reassurance that I will speak with her soon, and that we are not alone here. There are others, there are survivors. And even those who have gone are not perhaps entirely gone. But that conversation will have to wait, as many things are afoot. And I look first for Atlas, and I see he and Rose in a moment of togetherness in the distance. I see he's apparently very happy, and I do not interrupt this moment, as my conversation with both him and with Rose will have to wait as well. So instead, I go to seek the king. Now, I'm not looking for Rakondu, but if Rakondu is around, if I would have noticed him, let me know, because I do want to speak to him.
You would have seen him go into the temple while you were talking to Maria, and as you were approaching the temple, he is exiting.
Oh, great. Okay, then I go up to you, Rakondu, if Luke is there. He's not. So that's fine. For the moment, come back to me.
Okay, I will. I think Rem just left at the moment.
Okay.
How about
that's fine.
this?
We'll do a scene. We'll do a scene. I'll be talking to the Anselons.
Okay. Slight rewind.
Yeah. Are you all right?
Yes, I think I'm okay. I saw Daddy. He was flying up in the sky.
I look intently at Maria as to see if, like, do you see it, like, too?
Yeah, and she sees this, and the kid's kind of like, she kind of looks over at Evie, and she sort of gives a nod. there's like, yeah, yeah, well, I, I don't, by this point, uh, you're probably making your approach, David, as, as Mulahal is speaking with Evie and Maria. And Maria seems rather flustered by the whole thing. I don't, what, what, I don't, I don't know what that was. Uh,
Sorry, if
it was,
we switched to David, or sorry.
no, sorry, both of you are still.
Oh, you're here. Okay, the harvest. Okay. Oh. All right.
I kind of fade in through a wall next to you, and I've got that 1,000-yard stare, kind of a blank expression as I stand next to you and I look at them, and it doesn't seem to really bring me.
Are we in the harvest house, or where are we?
I don't know. Good question.
So I mean,
Uh-oh.
I think we're okay. That's fine. So you never mind. Continue, David. I'm sorry.
Right. So I'm there with you, 1,000-yard
1,000 yards
stare.
there.
Don't look my usual, happy self upon seeing the wife and kid. Just like this quick little flinch upward of my lips, a slight smile. What have they said? Sad.
I'm like, okay. So I just okay. I thought you came up to me while I was like in the conversation. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so they're.
Yeah, my wife was stuttering, and I just
Okay.
kind of came in. Yeah.
I guess she can't see you anymore. I don't immediately respond to you. Instead, I'm addressing your family. I reach out and put as your young daughters. I saw him. I put sort of a hand upon her head tenderly, almost familially. Strange for someone who has never spoken to family, been privy to your family traditions, been a part of the family unit, but given our connection that we feel for one another, I feel the love that you feel, and in a lesser extent, I know both of them far more than I normally would. Perhaps some imprint of you upon me. And look to Maria, and I nod meaningfully. Your husband is still here, beyond the veil. What has happened here? Many things have changed, but do not despair. For in these times that we have all lost so much, sometimes what we think we have lost is not lost after all. I sort of depart them as Maria can't talk.
But you
Can
might have
I?
noticed as you put your hand so familiarly upon my missus, I had a conflicted
On your daughter.
expression. Oh yeah, well whatever. On my significant peoples, I had a sort of conflicted expression there. As you are somewhat an extension of myself, you have the emotions that I have, the attachment that I have, and yet you're not me. You're someone who has never really met these people before. And though you and I may be friends due to our circumstances, the intimacy leaves me feeling mostly jealous because you're able to interact in this soothing way with them, and I can't. And that is a bit agonizing to watch as I yearn for that sort of contact. But at the same time, I feel relief that they are getting something. This gesture that's not quite me, but has a significant meaning to it. It's I can sort of speak and act through you, as you know the way that I feel and the way that I would act towards them.
Mhm.
And so you can see that conflict on my face, that struggle as my brows furrow, and I just silently watch.
I take note of that, sort of looking at your family, but also looking past them to what they cannot perceive, the figure standing over them. But I take my leave of them, and we discuss.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we shall have a short intermission. I remind you that every drink comes with a free napkin. Do enjoy, do celebrate this occurrence. We shall begin shortly, as soon as our flame tender returns.
I thought we were going to have a scene here.
Go ahead.
That's
Well, I'm not the stage manager. You do as you like.
I'll be acting stage manager. Let's continue. Now, what was that, David? Who was it that you fought? What were you speaking with? Another creature such as yourself? A ghost? Is he gone? I don't know. He's gone.
And my gaze snaps over to you as you've been talking, but like I didn't respond right away, and it's kind of like, huh? As I look over, and then my expression darkens,